I hope the sound works because I don't got the little muffs. I
Oh.
forgot them. So we'll see if we're super poppy. I don't know.
Yeah. Or
But-
nothing at all.
Yeah, right. How are you, Kenny?
I'm doing really well.
Yeah.
Not too bad at all.
Did you eat your donut?
Yes, I did. Don't tell Olga you got one. She'll know when she sees
Yeah,
this.
you just said it. You been out on your bike at all?
Not lately. I rode with the guy in Columbus, but it's been a few weeks now, and he has a knee problem too. So I'm still waiting for him to get back. I got another friend from up around on the other side of Bell Fountain. He keeps telling me we're going to get together and ride. I got my bike all ready, but never gets with me. You know, it's like
Yeah.
so. And I don't know. I can ride by myself, but I'd rather be with somebody. It's more enjoyable when you're out riding with other people.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Did you hear I'm doing a triathlon?
Yeah. And I didn't know this, but you can't swim.
Yeah. So that's gonna be interesting.
You-
I just am not very good at it. I've always been good enough to not drown, but I never but I never have like ventured off far enough to where it's like sketchy, you know. It's like I always swim where I know I can get to and
Yes.
never further. So this has been a brand new thing where it's like, okay, I better learn how to actually
Yes.
you know, have a stroke instead of splashing around. And you know, when I first started swimming at the pool, I would swim with just my arms, and my legs were just like dead in the water, floating behind me. Couldn't figure out how to get everything working all at the same time.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
it's
I don't
been
know
fun.
that I've ever gotten them all together, but I think I swim a lot with just my arms too, because I kind of taught myself by jumping off in water that was a little bit deeper than me or higher than me, and went down. And when I went down the first time, it's like you better get up and go back to the side.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you know, and after that, it wasn't bad at all. I mean, I jumped out and started swimming, and you felt more comfortable. Otherwise, you're scared to death you're going to drown.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. I tell people this in training for the triathlon. It's like in the run, if I get tired, I can take a break.
Yep.
In the bike, I can step off the bike. But in the swim, it's like you have to finish the swim. There's
Yeah.
no like...
Yeah. Especially if it's deep out there, you got to keep going.
Yeah.
You know?
Although it hasn't rained, so I'm like, I can't help but wonder. I'm like, I wonder how shallow the water is. 'Cause
Yeah.
it's
Where is
just
this
so
at?
dry. Hocking Hills, which they're like in a real drought right now.
Oh,
So,
okay.
Kind of crazy.
So is is that down close to the Ohio River? Does it go down through there?
It's heading that way. Yeah, it's heading that way. It's near Athens,
Okay.
so we're not all the way down there, but
Did you
Yeah.
get the bike that you was talking about?
yeah, I went and got an actual road bike. So it's the first time I've ever really ridden a road bike.
So how you like that?
It's fast. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was really impressed because I was just going to use my mountain bike
Mm-hmm.
because my mountain bike's pretty lightweight. And I was like, I'm not going to spend the extra money. But then we found a really good deal on Facebook Marketplace, and like the bike is really fast. So it's cool.
So you'll like that, especially when you're doing a distance. It's a lot better. It
Yeah.
doesn't tire you out as much.
Luckily, this is a sprint triathlon, so like
Ah.
everything's pretty short.
I see.
So I really didn't know if I would be able to swim even this distance. So let alone
So
a
how
longer
long?
distance.
How long is the swim part?
It's only 400 meters,
Okay.
so quarter mile, just a lap
Okay.
around the track kind of deal. So, but even that, like I've never swam that far.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
especially in water that there's no chance that you can touch. You know, if there's, you know, I think we drove up to Lake Michigan to practice a little bit, and even pretty far out, you could put your feet down and touch. And I was like, man, this would be so nice if I could touch the whole time, just to have that comfort of like, okay,
Yes. Yeah.
I can stick my feet down and But
I have a funny story. Kim and I had, when we lived here in town, we had a swimming pool. It was only like 4 foot deep. And a friend of ours was over, and I didn't know that he couldn't swim or whatever. I shoved him off or something, and he didn't know that it wasn't very deep. And he's like he's going to drown. And I said, dude, just stand up. When he stood up, I was like,
right.
you know,
Yeah.
it was like, but it scared him to death because he thought he was going to drown.
Yeah. Yeah. There's this really interesting quote out there that story reminds me of, and that it speaks about fear and faith, right? And that fear is kind of like looking at this big ocean of water
Yes.
and thinking, man, I don't know if I can swim through all of this. And faith is when you step out and realize that it's just
Yeah.
water that
Yeah.
deep, and that you're able to walk. And I think a lot of times, and I wrote about this in the article that I wrote, is just, I think in a lot of ways we are more capable than we give ourselves credit, and we talk ourselves out of a lot of things, just because we have this sense of being inadequate. But the reality is, like, we are all much more capable and much better equipped than we give ourselves credit. And I could talk about a lot of, physical things. It just takes a little bit of training to be able to do like a 5K, 10K, half marathon. It just takes a little bit of training, a little bit of effort. But it goes into your spiritual life, or, a relational life as well, where it's like, well, I can't talk to that person. It just takes a little bit of effort,
Yeah.
a little bit of gumption to get out there, to throw yourself out there and realize it's not that bad. Or, praying in front of people, or reading the Bible in front of people, or leading a class even. It just takes a little bit of practice, a little bit of effort, and just the ability to say yes to something that's important.
So I think it's kind of hard to try to share the gospel with your family. I don't know. I've always had that problem of just talking to them. Sometimes, though, I just throw it out there. It's like, got to say something. But
Yeah.
I think I could talk to other people easier than my family.
Why do you think that is?
Maybe I know them too much. I don't know, or they'll
They
think
know you too much?
Yeah. That could be it. To where they might think, well, look at you like, oh, you're just a crazy religious person, But maybe the fact is, though, they know me too much. They know how I act when I'm not in church, maybe, and he calls himself a Christian, So
Where do you draw your perception from in that? Like, why do you think they view you a certain way? Do they say stuff, or you just think that?
I think I don't know if I've heard it. I know my wife said stuff where, but they see you at home, and sometimes you're not always living that, righteous life that you should, you think you're okay, but they see the real you, I think, when you get angry or things like that, when you do things that doesn't look real Christian, not that you want to or you're trying to, but sometimes it's the way you are, maybe. So I think maybe that makes it really hard to speak to them then, I know way back when I was raising two of my nephews, and when they lived at our house, they had to come to church with me. And I know one of my nephews asked me once, Uncle Kenny, why is it that you can be hollering at us boys and a church person walk in and you're so nice to them? That kind of hits you, It's like, yeah, that's a good question. Why are you do that way? Because they are family? I don't know.
What would you say is a way that we could bring union between the person we are behind closed doors and the person that we are in church? How do you close that gap between those different
Wow.
representations of ourselves?
I think you really got to pray about it, for one thing. Look at yourself, look at how you are acting, because I don't know, that's the way you are when you're at home, and it's not always right. So, people are watching you, and you need to be Christ-like at all times, and sometimes that's not easy. Although Christ did get upset, didn't he, when he went to the temple? But I think mainly probably start looking at yourself a lot, but you got to be praying about it too.
Yeah, I think this conversation is leading to. I heard an interview question the other day about. It was an interviewer talking to the guy who plays Jesus on The Chosen.
Mm-hmm.
You ever watch The Chosen?
Haven't seen any of the series, no.
I haven't either. but you know the guy.
Yes.
That played. So they were talking, and she asked him. I thought it was an interesting question. If you were able to sit down for a cup of coffee with Jesus, what would be the one thing that you ask him? And so I ask you, Kenny, what would be the one thing that you ask Jesus?
I don't know. I've never really thought about it. There's some really good questions out there you could ask him. Maybe today you hear a lot of, why does God heal this person and doesn't heal that person? Would that be a question? I don't know. I mean, it is a big question for people. I think they have a lot of problem with that. We don't always understand it, but is that our right to question that? It's God's right to heal who He wants, and maybe there's another reason why He doesn't. But I think that would be a big question, maybe.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think it's a great question. It's something that we all deal with. And even though I could sit here and give you a pastoral answer, the reality is, when something bad happens to me, I still, even though I know the answer,
Yeah.
I still find myself asking the question, for example, when a couple years ago while I was here, I had a big liver problem, and doctors couldn't find out what it was. And I found myself asking the question, why is this happening to me right as I just been married, right as we found out that we're pregnant with our first kid? Why would something like this happen to someone like me? And Josiah, his pregnancy was difficult, and there was some real concerns on whether or not he would even make it full term. And he asked questions like, why is this happening? Why do we struggle with these things? And we can intellectually give the answer, but the reality is life is hard. And we ask ourselves, why does God allow good things to happen to bad people? And why does He let those who are bad have great things, and why is it that He allows good people to experience bad things? So
I'm not sure, but I'm trying to think. I think Pastor Isaac, the one we had here last Sunday, addressed something like that. I can't remember just all he said now about it. Why, but I think it comes down to it's God's choice. He's a righteous God, and He can choose who He wants to, And we do grow through some of those. We grow through those hard times, and God gives them to us so that He's always there with you, but you grow, and when you come out on the other side, it's like, oh, now I can see why,
Yeah.
But it's not really easy when you're going through it.
Yeah. The guy from The Chosen said, how did I do? Because he's playing Jesus. So how was my performance? Was it close to how you lived at that time? I thought that was a pretty interesting question. And then it got me thinking, we all kind of ask that question because if we are in Christ and Christ is in us, then we are to be Christ-like and to live out in his likeness in the modern world what it would be to be like Jesus. And so maybe this is a question all of us might ask is, how did I do? How did I perform in showing the world that was around me what it would be like for Christ to live in the modern world? But then it got me thinking even more. The natural segue from that is this question of how can I be a person in which Christ looks at me and says at the end of my life, well done, my good and faithful servant. And what strikes me about that entire thought process is that from that perspective, life is simply a performance, and you're judged based on how you perform. But we know that's not right.
Right.
How are you
right.
judged, Kenny?
By the blood of Christ.
By the blood of Christ over your life, by grace, by faith, right? And so it's not based on what you are able to produce or how well you are able to act or how much you are able to perform. You're based simply on the fact that Christ gave his life for you.
Yes.
And that he has traded your place for your transgressions that you might be able to live because of him.
Yes.
And so with that, there's this deep battle because I'm somebody who wants to perform, right? Not necessarily like in theater perform, but perform acts of good things to prove that I'm a faithful disciple. And what Jesus' sacrifice means for us is that there really is no need for a great performance. And so I brought my Bible, and I kind of wanted to read this with you and just get your thoughts. It comes out of Matthew 25, and it starts in verse 14. It says, "For it will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted to them his property. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to another 1, to each according to his ability, and then he went away. He who had received the 5 talents went at once and traded with them, and made 5 talents more. So also he who had 2 talents made 2 talents more. But he who had received the 1 talent went and dug in the ground and hid his master's money. Now after a long time the master of those servants came and settled accounts with them. And he who had received the 5 talents came forward, bringing 5 talents more, saying, Master, you delivered to me 5 talents. Here, I have made 5 talents more. His master said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little. I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. And he also, who had 2 talents, came forward, saying, Master, you delivered to me 2 talents. Here I have 2 talents more. His master said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little. I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. He also, who had received 1 talent, came forward, saying, Master, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow, and gathering where you scattered no seed. So I was afraid, and I went and hid the talent in the ground. Here, you have what is yours. But his master answered him, You wicked and slothful servant. You knew that I reap where I had not sown, and gather where I scattered no seed. Then you ought to have invested my money with the bankers, and at my coming should have received what was my own with interest. So take the talent from him and give it to him who has the 10 talents. For to everyone who has been given, and he who has will more be given, and he will have an abundance. But from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. And cast the worthless servant into the outer darkness, in that place where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." Great ending. Love that ending. Next story. "When the Son of Man comes in his glory and all his angels with him, then he will sit in his glorious throne. Before him will be gathered all the nations, and he will separate people one from another, as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. And he will place the sheep on his right, but the goats on his left. And the king will say to those on his right, Come, you who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me. I'll stop there. So, what do you hear when you first hear that? What do you think?
We're talking about the first story that you read, first part of Matthew.
These all go together, right?
okay.
These stories kind of flow together.
What was running through my mind at first was, because I know I've read this before, and wondering, about the guy that, okay, he didn't invest it, but he got everything taken away, And then before it, about the time he was almost done, it kind of hit me was, God's maybe saying that you heard the word, but you don't leave it inside.
Mm.
You invest it. You go and you spread the word and you invest it. And the second part of the story, I can't remember just all what it was about now.
The sheeps and the goats.
Separating the sheep and the goats. I guess he uses the goats as the people that have never asked for forgiveness, never been saved, never did the will of God. He asks us to follow him and do his will, and it's kind of hard for us not to want to do ours sometimes. But now I think about my goats. You guys are on the outside, dude.
Yeah. So the verse that really sticks out to me is the one who had received 1 talent comes to the master and says, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow, gathering where you scattered no seed. So I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground. Mm. And what strikes me is I think that's the crux of the passage, is I think that it's not so much that the servant failed to serve, although he did fail to serve. His failure to serve was produced out of his failure to truly know who the master was. Mm-hmm. I think he didn't know who Jesus really was. That if he knew Jesus, if he knew the master, out of him would be produced this abundance. And it comes from this deep, your fruitfulness, your ability to produce something comes out of a deep connection to the vine, right? To the true vine, in which if you are connected, it's just part of who you are. You'll produce more fruit because you truly know the master, and the relationship you have with the world is formed out of the relationship you have with Jesus. Mm-hmm. And then this next story, the king says to those on his right, the sheep, not the goats, Come you who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you. Inheritance is always a gift, and it's something that cannot be earned, right? It's just because of who you are given this gift. It's been prepared for you from the foundation of the world, meaning that gift that they're inheriting was set at the very beginning of all things. There's nothing that changed it. It was always coming to be. It was always going to be your gift to have. And 4, verse 35, I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, you welcomed me. And he goes through this long list of things that people do in service. And we often say, there it is, right? Mm-hmm. And in order for us to inherit it, it's because we do good things. But that 4 is not causal. Instead, it's a production of a wellspring of who we internally are. So my favorite saying is, an apple tree produces apples. right?
Yep.
That if you are an apple tree, you're going to produce apples. So, for I was naked, you clothed me. It's like, well, that's just what you do, right? It's not, oh, I need to earn the love of Jesus today, but instead, when you saw a need, you met it. When you saw someone without love, you gave it to them. When you saw things in chaos, you brought peace to it, right? It just comes from the wellspring of who you already are, right? And this comes from knowing the master, right? That if you have true knowledge of who Christ is and you let that abide in you, then what you're producing in the world is going to naturally be good, right? And so if we were sitting with Jesus and we're having a cup of coffee with him, there would be no need for you to ask how I'm doing. You would already know because he's already abiding in you, right? There's no reason for you to ask for a performance check because you just naturally are, because you've been made new through baptism, that you and Christ are now unified in one body. And because of that, you pour out Christ-likeness, right?
Yep.
There is no going to get God. You don't go to church to get God. God is already indwelling inside you, right? And so this performance thing is ridiculous. You don't need to think about it, right? We often read these passages as like, this is going to be my last day. But the reality is, once you accept Christ in your life, you can already live as a well done, my good and faithful servant. And so Christ's not asking you to perform or, do some great thing, but instead just be faithful to what he's already given you.
Yep. I think I've heard you speak to that before. It's like, probably hadn't heard it before you said it either. It's like, when you accept Christ, you're already living as a saved person, or you're in heaven. You're in I know we all say we're waiting to go to heaven, but once you're saved, you're living it right here on earth.
Yeah, right now.
Yes.
Yeah, right now. And so if I was having a cup of coffee with Jesus, it would be a continuation of the conversation we've already been having. It would be like when I come and see you, it's not like I'm seeing you for the first time,
Right.
We've had a relationship to this point, and so we pick up where we left off. You
could ask him what football team he's rooting for.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, it's just a conversation, right? I'm already with Christ,
Yep.
right? And so I already know how he views me.
Yeah.
I already know what he thinks of my performance. I know what he thinks when I'm having a bad day. I know what he thinks when I'm having a good day.
Yeah.
He has already revealed these things to me, and I'm already with him. And so are you.
Yep.
And so is everybody who's in Christ, right?
Yeah.
And so it should remove this anxiety, basically.
Right.
It should remove this anxiety of, man, I better perform for Jesus.
Yeah.
Instead, be with him. And when you are with him, out of this abiding comes a fruitful life.
That third guy wouldn't have had fear of the master when he gave him the one talent.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
and
If
then
he
he
knew
would
him.
out and would have made more.
Yeah. When you think about this, just one more point, when we think about Christ, there is not one place, even in the depths of Sheol, in which he is not there. And if that's the case, then there's not one place in which he doesn't look at and claim dominion over. And so there's nothing that you or I can produce that he doesn't already own,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And so the reality is, for the servant to say that, he doesn't understand that the master owns the seeds no matter who planted them,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so he has a great misunderstanding of who Christ is.
Yeah.
But-
Yep.
So, well, how about that hand, huh? Show the camera that hand.
My goodness.
Swollen. He fought some yellow jackets the other day.
Or I think they were wasps. But
Some wasps.
yeah, I brought the yellow jacket up because they were at my wife's reunion Saturday. They were talking about honeybees, and I heard the lady say, "Yeah, a bee can only sting you once and then it dies." And it hit me. no, yellow jackets can sting you as many times as they want to. And then my wife says, well, they're not a bee. And I'm like, well, then what are they? I've always heard they were bees, but I guess they're not in the bee family. So it's kind of hard for me to understand that. If they look like a bee, they sting like a bee, it's like they're a bee. And they're in the wasp family, I guess. And there's different types. But it didn't make a whole lot of sense at the time.
All you know is
It
whatever
hurt.
got
And it-
you,
yeah,
whatever
yeah.
got you hurt.
Yeah, yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's almost like a bite when they do that. It's like, wow, that hurt. And it's like, I know I'm going to swell up on this one again. So, yeah, you get stung once on the arm and then they hit the other arm. It's like crazy. Yeah. And you don't even see them coming. Boom.
Oh, I'll never forget because the church has yellow jackets or wasps or something in the ground.
Yeah.
So whichever one those are, and they stung Olga while she was late pregnancy with Micah,
Oh,
and we were afraid that she was gonna go into labor.
oh my.
That would have been
I think
crazy.
that's yellow jackets that go in, because
Yeah.
I stepped when I was a young boy and living in DeGraff, Ohio, we all went out fishing, and I stepped in a yellow jacket's nest, and they covered me. I mean, they just stick to your clothing and just keep stinging you. So yeah, I think they're the ones that are in the ground, but there also is hornets, hornets or something like that would bore into the ground.
Evil
too.
little boogers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
But, hey, can I pray with you?
Yes.
All right. Lord, thank you so much for this time that we're able to get together with one another. I pray over Kenny and his leadership here at Urbana Friends and the kindness that he shows all people. I ask that you continue to reveal fruits through him and that people might come to know Jesus because of him. I pray over Urbana Friends as they're currently searching for a full-time pastor to come here and preach in this place, but also lead them into your ways. And I just ask that whoever it is that they vote forward, that it might be one that you've called, that you've led to this place, and that it's clear to them that this is the person that we need at this time to experience life in community with God and with one another. So, Lord, I ask that you continue to guide them, guide the leadership team, guide the vote that's coming up, and, Lord, may we see great fruit out of Urbana Friends Church. We love you, Lord. Amen. All right, man. Good to talk to you. We'll talk again soon.
Yeah, that was pretty good.